Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Paralegal Mastery Lounge. I am Jacqueline Foster, and I'm so very excited to talk today about whether freelancing independently, opening up your own business is going to be better for you, or if it's going to be better for you to work with a paralegal agency. I'm gonna tell you something really quick I'm super excited about. This is gonna be the last episode where I sound kind of like crap. I invested in a microphone and I'm so very excited to use it. However, of course, because I am a Mac user, an Apple user, I cannot get that microphone to hook up with my phone, which is what I use to record, and thank you to iPhone and being difficult with your C ports. But that'll be here on Friday, so next week's episode is going to sound so much better. All right, a couple other things before I get started. If you are freelancing or you're not freelancing and want to be freelancing, I have a free resource for you, which is our Freelance Paralegal Starter Kit. It includes a 12-step process, my proven 12-step process to start a freelance paralegal business that is scalable. It also includes an hour-long training video. If you have a freelance paralegal business already and you haven't leveraged this resource or anything of mine, go grab this free starter kit because you could be missing out on a key component to your business that I will be discussing within that starter kit. So go check it out. For beginner freelancers, it's also an absolutely wonderful resource to have to start to look at what it's going to look like to build your own business. The second thing I want to mention, because I want to keep you excited and engaged in this platform, is that Flex Paralegals USA, the online marketplace for attorneys to connect directly with freelance paralegals advertising their services, is going to be showing up this month. It's finally going to be here this month, so stay tuned, stay with me, and make sure you join our Founders Launch mailing list. So when we're gonna head out and tell all the paralegals it's time, jump in, build your profiles, demonstrate your services on our platform, you'll be the first to know as you're signed up for the Founders Launch. So both these links are in the description below. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I'm going to talk with you about whether freelancing independently, opening up your own business is going to be better for you, or if it's going to be better for you to work with a paralegal agency. You might not know this about me. Before I started my business, my freelance paralegal independent business in 2020, I subcontracted through a paralegal agency from 2018, actually through 2020. I continued to subcontract with that agency about 9 months into owning my own business. And it was actually perfect for me when I started, because you have to remember, back in 2018, having remote positions being offered by law firms was just not a thing. And when the closest law firm to me was 30 miles away, and it offered $15 per hour. I had a little baby on the way. It didn't make sense to put him in daycare, have all those costs. I'd be making like $200 at the end of the month. It was just not practical. So I decided to stay home, but I knew I needed to make some sort of income. So lo and behold, I connected with a company that got me my first foot in the door as a freelance paralegal. And it was amazing that my first client was a large firm out of Chicago, and I was just scheduling IMEs. I was making very little money, but I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to put my baby in daycare, and it was absolutely perfect for me. I have a lot of experience. Plus, now I run an agency. So about 6-ish months in my business, I decided to go into the agency model, and I built an agency right away. So between having worked for an agency, having freelanced independently, and now having built an agency myself, I am very qualified to talk to you about some factors to consider when you're looking at working with an agency or just going right into independent freelancing yourself. So the number one factor I want to point out is acquiring new clients, as well as managing the clients and the business as a whole. When you work for a freelance paralegal agency, the agency itself is handling all the client acquisition, all that marketing that's involved, the branding, the awareness, like all of those things to get clients into the business. They're also managing invoicing, client relationship, ongoing management. They're handling all the administrative work that goes behind running a freelance paralegal business that if you went independent, you would have to handle on your own. So obviously we know this, but just something to point out, especially as we get into number 2, I want you to really have this at forefront of your brain, that you going independent as a paralegal, you are going to be in charge of getting your own clients, marketing yourself to get those clients, all of the invoicing, all the client management, all the business administrative function. Quick disclaimer here, I am not here to sway you one way or the other. I am just giving you the facts of what it's like to work with an agency versus freelancing independently. And at the end, I will bring it full circle and give you my true recommendation on what I think you should consider doing. Acquiring clients and doing the managing of the relationships in the business, that was a huge blessing for me in disguise maybe. Yeah, I wasn't making a ton of money freelancing through an agency. I think at the time it was $12 an hour, but mind you, this is 2018 and a lot has changed since then. I had a little baby at home. I had no idea what it would take to start my own business. I had no idea where I'd begin trying to get clients, not to mention I had zero confidence in myself in doing so. My imposter syndrome was so high. At the time, it was going to be impossible. So the number 2 factor I want you to consider is the rates. Now you'll understand why I talked about the client acquisition and the business management first and foremost, because it's going to factor in as you weigh the rate opportunities and the earning potentials between these 2 options. A freelance paralegal out there today on average is making about $65 per hour. Now the range is going from like 50 to 80. Some of your high stake litigation paralegals or your corporate litigation paralegals or just your corporate paralegals, some of those higher end type cases and that requires a super strong specialty are going to be even charging beyond that $80 per hour. When you're going to an agency, and this is something I really want to clarify because it's different than your typical temp to permanent hire agency, okay? So a temp to permanent hire agency will figure out, what you need to be paid. They will then apply an upcharge onto that rate and put it on the client as we're providing you this service type of fee. Agencies that offer out services such as 1099 paralegals, legal assistants, what have you, are typically charging a standard rate to their clients across the board, and then they are coming down from that rate to keep a profit margin in what they are paying you. So the agency in this example could be charging $60 per hour to their client, for instance, and they're going to mark you down about 50%. They need that 50% room to be able to manage, have cash reserves, manage ebbs and flows, busy seasons, slow seasons, make sure they're paying you on time, even if the client's not wanting to pay you on time, all those fun things. And also needing to take money for themselves. They are not nonprofits, right? They're going to be typically marking you down about 50%. So you can expect an agency that's saying, $60 per hour to pay you about $30. So again, some things to consider here though, when you're looking at that lower 50% lower, it's a significantly big jump down from what you could be making going independently, is all the things that you're not having to do within that rate cut, right? So does it weigh out? Does it make sense for you to not have to take on that does it make sense for you to not have to take on that entrepreneurial role and leverage the agency and their successes to keep you busy as a contractor, even though you're making half of what you could be making on your own? I will say that once you get the momentum going of owning your own independent paralegal business and freelancing on your own, you're going to find quickly that acquiring new clients and marketing yourself and all the administrative tasks and building that business acumen is going to come a lot easier than you might have thought. You need to go grab that free resource you have available to you on starting a paralegal business and having a stepping stone strategy and doing so that things are compounding on one another to make it very, very simple for you to market that business and have that marketing be effective so you can get clients really quickly and to get your business off the ground. The next factor to consider, a lot of paralegals consider, is the freedom of schedule. I'm here to tell you that no matter where you work as a contractor, whether that's through an agency, by yourself, what have you, you are in control of your schedule. That is like the cardinal rule of 1099 contracts. You have to be able to set your own rates. Obviously, if the rates don't line up with what they're looking for, you're not going to get the contract. But nonetheless, you are allowed to set your own rates. You are allowed to set your own schedule, free from interference. Again, when you work with clients, you're going to definitely have to be accommodating of their needs as best as possible. Now, agencies are very much in the business to have predictability. So a lot of the agencies you work for, you will find, especially if you're doing an hourly type of scenario, you will find that they are requiring their clients to engage in minimum packages. Okay, so they're requiring them to say sign up for 5 hours a week at minimum. So when you work for the agency, you'll know you're expected to give those 5 hours per week, like that's what the client is signing you for, and you're able to sort of figure out, and you might have an open conversation with their client on how you're going to disperse those hours and what that's going to look like from a practical standpoint for yourself and for them. Same thing is going to be happening on the independence paralegal going off on their own, getting their own clients. You are going to set your own schedule within reason and have an open conversation with your clients on what will work best mutually for both of you to accomplish in the hourly situation those minimum packages, and also make it make sense for both of you. Number 4, and what I consider the most important factor to consider, is the concept of an ideal client. So my alumni students from my Freelance Paralegal Roadmap course will probably giggle if they're listening or watching this, because I find a way to sneak in the ideal client, or what I personally call the North Star client, into almost everything I talk about. The main reason is because it is the foundation to everything else that is going to go right or wrong in your business. It's what's going to make marketing successful or unsuccessful. It's going to make if you are happy or not happy. It's going to make if you are getting great referrals or not getting great referrals. It's going to help you figure out your prices, your services, how you're delivering them. It's all of those things. Talk about it in this situation where we're talking about the ideal client. When looking at being independent or working with an agency, you are not necessarily getting to work with your ideal client within the agency. Of course, you can say no to anything the agency sends your way, but if you're at the mercy of them keeping you busy and you really need another 10 hours of work, and they're like, hey, we have a 10-hour client, you're like, you start working with them, and you're like, this is not the person I was put on this earth to work with. Like, that's unequivocal. You feel a little stuck. And here's the key, though, that I'm trying to help you turn. The agency has their own ideal client in their mind, whatever that may be, and that's who they're marketing to, so that's who they are attracting. It's not your ideal client. It's not the client you have established is who you need to be working with and who this business needs to be serving. It's the agency's ideal client. But when I worked in the agency, it was a hit or miss. I had a couple of clients that I absolutely loved, and they still stand strong. Like, even my husband remembers their names because I talked about them so much, and it worked so well. There were a couple, actually 2 in particular, that were degrading, that you could tell they just did not respect paralegals whatsoever, and pretty much everything opposite of what I, to this day, consider my ideal client. Now, I was lucky, and the point is going to be made here, I was lucky that my agency respected me as a paralegal and respected me as a contributor to their business success, and were able to identify when the client was very much overstepping. I'm in decency, right? Just being a nice human. And they had my back, okay? They would go to bat for me. And I always felt that. So when you're going into picking an agency, I want you to consider your ideal agency, because you're not going to be able to establish your ideal client as easily working with the agency. They're establishing their ideal client and they're piecemealing them down to you. They're feeding them down to you. But you need to figure out your ideal agency. Some things that would be top of my list today if I were to decide to go back and work for an agency. Absolutely no non-competes. I will not work with a company that tells me that I can't go be in business for myself for a year after I part ways. I don't care if we think it's enforceable or not. It's just the vibe will not work for me. Number 2, they have to clearly and outright publicly be demonstrating that they respect paralegals and what paralegals do for law firms and for attorneys. And 3, truthfully, this is me personally, I would only work for an agency that has minimum packages, because that pushes clients to stay consistent. That's why I implemented in my agency. It's nothing other than a tactic to get attorneys consistent. They have the work. It's just sometimes they need the push to send it, which having a 20-hour a month minimum package that's totally achievable, it just pushes them. Like, you're going to lose these hours if you don't send work, which brings predictability in your schedule. Okay, we have reached the end where I am ready to make my personal recommendation on whether going independent is better or sticking with an agency is better. I don't think one is better than the other. What I feel is that if you go to start an independent freelance business, which I so much think you should, you can and very much are encouraged to leverage the reputation, the network, the establishedness of an agency to help you along your way. It is a very good opportunity if you can get in with an agency that's going to keep you busy, or even give you 15 hours of work a week, or even 5 as you start inching your way out of full-time employment, to help you get closer to your goal of, say, ultimately freelancing full-time. If you want to ultimately freelance full-time, you can leverage an agency to get you there faster. Now, my other recommendation is, if you don't want to leverage an agency, you want to jump right in, obviously take my Freelance Paralegal Roadmap course that's going to start in April, because I will get you there very, very fast. However, it is never a bad thing to do both in the beginning. In fact, as I said before, I stayed with my agency even 9 months into my business, where I myself was running an agency and I had 15, 20 clients under my wing, on my client roster. So one is not better than the other. There's too many things that you have to weigh and factor in, the pros and cons that play together. For instance, lower rate as a paralegal in an agency versus an independent paralegal running their own business, but you don't have to get the clients, you don't have to run the business, you don't have to do any of the client relationship management. So is that a proper trade-off? Ultimately, the decision is going to boil down to individual preferences. What makes the most sense for you personally, professionally, financially? What would make the best sense for you? But one thing I hope you can take away from this is that this industry of paralegals freelancing has opened up so incredibly much that paralegals, non-paralegals, legal entrepreneurs, non-legal entrepreneurs even, are creating agencies to keep up with the demand. They have found a way, such as myself, to attract so many clients into their business that they're like, you get that bug. You're like, I can't stop growing, so I'm gonna start bringing in more paralegals. I'm not saying that's the route you have to go. We talk about that in the roadmap, which business model makes the most sense for you to scale in. Where do you wanna go with your business? But it is so big that companies and more companies are being created every single year to fill up the demand, to supply that demand. So the industry is waiting for you. If you have not taken the plunge yet and you have not started freelancing, the industry is waiting for you to join. There are clients waiting to hire you. There is not enough supply for that demand, nor will there ever be. So if you have any questions, leave them, comment them below if you're watching on YouTube. Also, don't forget to follow me, subscribe, go follow me on my channels. Make sure you like and turn on your notifications for future episodes. If you're on the podcast, I really highly appreciate if you could go ahead and take the time to leave us a rating. It helps the podcast grow. I love the feedback. It helps me keep this podcast alive. So please take the time to leave us a rating if you feel compelled. One last little reminder, on March 26th, on both LinkedIn as well as in our private Facebook group, Paralegal Mastery Lounge, you can access both below, a live webinar happening for paralegals that maybe are getting their feet wet with freelancing or haven't even begun and are just wondering, is freelancing as a paralegal right for you? I'm going to just dissect what it is to be a freelance paralegal, what you can expect, how to hone in and find your specific marketable niche within the industry that might get you excited to just take the plunge and get going. So it's on March 26th at 11. Be sure to go sign up, because even if you can't attend the live, there will be a recording available and you'll have great access to it if you go and sign up. So links are all below. Go to my LinkedIn, go to the Facebook group, what have you, and come join us for this exciting live hour-long event. All right, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, have great days ahead of you.